Let's go live now to the Nationals leader, David Littleproud, to talk net zero once again. This time, there's a little bit of agitation within your sister party, brother party, the Liberals. Andrew Hastie threatening to go to the backbench.
Oh yeah, look, well, Andrew's made very clear what his position is, but I think if you cast your mind back, as I recall, the Coalition voted against legislating net zero target by 2050, and we voted against the 2030 target. And now, obviously, we're going through a process of review of the net zero position. Both parties are individually, the Nationals our own, and we'll get to a position, we'll feed that in together and then work through as a coalition where that might land. So I think it's important not to preempt any decision, but we do have a track record in terms of our voting history with respect of legislating targets.
Well, there's plenty of people wanting to preempt that decision because we don't really know when that review would be completed. So what's your understanding of when a decision might be made?
Well, obviously, the Nationals are working through our process. We're waiting on some modelling to come back, and then we'll get to our position. We'll give that to the Liberal Party around what that might look like, and then move on from there. And as I understand it, Dan Teen's piecing together not only the Liberal position, but then feed in what our Nationals position is, and we'll get to that decision. The reality is if there's legislation put in the coming weeks when we get back to Parliament, then we'll review that, look at what the target is when they announce it, what the government announces, and move that through that process accordingly.
Okay, so time frame?
Well, I mean, if there's legislation presented to us, it could be in a matter of weeks. But we have a more structured process that's looking for more economic data that's very acute in terms of its scope of trying to appreciate exactly what the cost is of this pathway to net zero and what the rest of the world is doing. When you look at what the rest of the world is, even more liberal societies like Canada is moving away even from a 45 to 50% target by 2035. So we'll obviously work through that, but if the government brings forward legislation, then we'll look at that. But you also need to look at our track record of what we did in the last term of Parliament when they brought forward an interim target and legislating net zero by 2050.
What did you do? Because it seems like if they did bring forward this legislation...
We voted against it.
Right, okay. So would that then be the declaration of your decision?
Well, obviously, I'm not going to preempt what the decision-making process is, but in 2022, when the government brought forward their 2030 target, and when they brought that forward, they moved legislation to legislate a 2050 net zero target. The Coalition voted against it. It's on Hansard.
So, so if you vote against this target, which it sounds like you probably will, because obviously with this report out yesterday being cataclysmic, I think that's a pretty good sign that the government's preparing to put forward a pretty ambitious target, if we put it that way. This is usually how these things work. I'm happy to be proven wrong. But if this legislation is put, you vote against it, do we take that as a declaration that you won't support net zero, or should we read them as two separate things?
Well, obviously we'll look at the legislation, what the government brings forward, but just with respect to this report, I think it's important, while these reports are instructive, I think you should look at the comments of people like Tony Wood from the Grattan Institute, who made it very clear that the data that feeds in this, it makes it inherently difficult for you to get accuracy in terms of what this report is trying to articulate. And particularly when you look at some of the assumptions behind it, even around the fact that you're not even looking at adaptation within what this report is saying, shows that I think the government is trying to heighten emotions rather than responsibly understand the way of reducing emissions. Net zero is not the only way to reduce emissions and to address climate change.
No.
There are other ways around what we can do that, particularly when Australia is only a bit over 1% of total emissions. We need to understand that there are ways around adaptation, and we don't need to go down an all-renewables approach that is destroying the actual environment, but is destroying regional Australia. And that's why I think there needs to be more mature debate rather than this puerile debate from the Prime Minister that says, if you don't believe in net zero, you don't believe in climate change. We should be, as political leaders, more mature than that and be able to have a mature discussion with the Australian people about our role and how we can deliver reducing emissions, but protect our economy. If you look at your energy bill at the moment, you should see Anthony Albanese's face on it. And when they can't even tell you what the number is for their energy grid, what are they hiding? I mean, we went to the last election with a detailed plan and costings. To this day, Labor still will not tell us exactly what their all-renewables approach will cost this economy. And I find that staggering.
Like that climate report, David, there's a lot of guesswork involved, I suggest, and that's probably why the government isn't putting that cost forward. But as leader, I want to ask you, is your preference to maintain a policy of net zero but have a radically different path to get there?
Well, what we'll do work through is, I'm not going to preempt my party room. I believe in the promise of my party room. And what we're looking at is economic analysis about making sure we protect Australian jobs and protecting regional Australia from this all-renewables approach. We'll get to that position and then we'll stand steadfastly behind the Nationals' position. But I don't want to preempt where my party room gets on that, and I think it's important
but what about
we undertake that analysis.
Could you sell that, though, as leader, do you think? We stick with net zero, but we have a radically different pathway and different trajectory of getting there.
Well, I think I find it difficult to see. Net zero has become more about trying to achieve the impossible rather than doing what's sensible. And I think this is where you need political leadership. Political leadership where we don't just have this puerile argument that says, if you don't believe in net zero, you don't believe in climate change. I believe there has been climate change and man's made an influence on it. But I think there are different ways and better ways than an arbitrary target that the world is not living up to, but the way that Labor Party is undertaking is destroying our economy. You only have to look at that every quarter when you open up your energy bill. So why wouldn't you, as a political leader, say, let's have that conversation in a mature way?
That's what I'm asking you, David. That's what I'm asking you. Can you have a target and still have that sensible conversation and a radically different pathway to get there? You seem to be saying this morning, which I'm detecting a bit of a shift from you, that you don't think you can have that with the net zero target. It seems that there's too many people within your party that just don't want to see the target at all.
Well, I wouldn't make any presumptions about my party room, and I think that's why we've been very mature about making sure that we get the economic analysis and get the understanding. That's the process that we've all agreed to, our whole party room. So that's the way that we wanted to move forward.
But there's a lot of guesswork as well. Where are you getting this extra information from?
Well, not in terms of the cost. I'm sorry, Laura. Not in terms of the cost. You can tell. I can tell you what our energy grid was going to be at the last election. It was $331
David, come on.
billion.
You know, when you've got plans that go 2-3 decades out, that there's always cost blowouts. you just have to look at any infrastructure.
Well, due respect, what's Labor's plan? I'm sorry, Laura. No, I'll have to pull you up on that. Their plan goes up over 10 years, this all-renewables approach. That takes us to 82% and then to 92%.
Yeah, but there's guesswork involved in everything.
With respect, but hold on, we had the courage of our conviction to put a number on it, predicated on real numbers around the world. Why can't the Labor Party do that? If you want to sit here and hold and question me, and to your defence, you did do that to Tim Ayres the other day, which he couldn't answer. I think the Fourth Estate needs to step up here, and they need to ask the government quite clearly, what is the total cost of their integrated system plan? What is it? They're not prepared to give it because they know that it's substantial once you bring in the capacity investment scheme, once you bring in the transmission lines, that it's a lot more significant than the $331 billion that we asked, that we said that we would go to the election with. And I think it's important. This government, if they're that proud about what they're doing, and it's the cheapest form of energy, then be proud enough and courageous enough to put that number in front of the Australian people. Yeah. Instead, we have seen nothing but a political smokescreen from Anthony Albanese and Chris Bowen in this lie, in this myth, and people are seeing it in their energy bill every quarter.
I don't disagree, but look at how many seats that your side of politics lost at the last election. This might not be the low. And then the news poll just yesterday, there was a lot of talk about net zero whilst this poll was in the field. There's a political reality.
Well, firstly, can I just say that there is a political reality, and can I firstly just say the National Party didn't lose any seats.
No.
Our coalition partners did. But I don't think that we lost it on nuclear energy. We lost it on work from home. We lost it on some pretty ordinary campaigning, to be candid. And I don't think that the Australian people rushed to Anthony Albanese. They held their nose and voted for Anthony Albanese just because they didn't trust Peter Dutton at the time. That's the political reality. It wasn't about our energy policy. It was about the fact that we'd made serious mistakes, and we're going to step up to that around work from home. And our campaign was atrocious. And they made Peter Dutton unelectable by character assassination. That's why we lost it. It wasn't because of the glowing endorsement of Anthony Albanese. Australians just held their nose and voted for him because they couldn't bring themselves to vote for Peter Dutton. That's the political reality, what happened in May.
David, always good to talk to you. We've gone a little over today. That always happens with us. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.